Check one, two.
Jingle and a jingling beat. That's the jingle bell. That's the jingle bell. That's the jingle bell. Rock, oh yeah, baby.
Dashing through the snow in a one-horse open sleigh. O'er the fields we go, laughing all the way. The bells on bobtail ring, they make our spirits bright. What fun it is to ride and sing a sleighing song tonight. Jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. To ride in a one-horse
perfect. Right there? Yep.
Okay, we ready to go? Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the December 14th meeting of the Placer County Planning Commission. And so at any rate, we will start by doing a flag salute. So please join me. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, the next thing we'll do is our roll call.
Commissioner Johnson.
Did you say Johnson? Okay, yeah. Here.
Commissioner DiMattei.
Here.
Commissioner Dahlgren.
She's having some audio difficulties right now, so if we could just sit tight until we get 1 second so we can get that figured out.
Whoa, yeah, nice. Yeah.
Hi, Robin, can you hear me?
Test 1, 2.
Okay, bear with us. We're working on the audio for anybody that's online.
Hey. You take care of the grandchildren first, take care of the other part. Then it's children. That's a lot. So you want us to be grandchildren and grandkids? Oh, that's 16. No, 40 around 30. 30? Something like that. Almost all of them have a nine. Really? Yeah. Really good. I'm good. Woo, thank you.
Test 1, 2. Ballgren, can you actually say something? Unmute yourself.
So we're still having some audio connectivity issues with the alternate location. If the chair is okay with it, I'd suggest we take a 5-minute break till we can get those resolved.
Okay, we'll take a 5-minute break. Thank you.
Thanks.
Take a 5-minute break for audio problems.
Show off Placer County here on the table.
I cannot hear you. For some reason. Okay. I just did it.
Test 1, 2. Check 1, 2, 3, 4.
I can hear him, but in the room, not from the microphone. Yeah. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, hold on, I'll do that. Okay, I did it.
Test 1, 2, 3, 4.
Yes, I can hear. Okay, thanks. Bye.
It looks like we may be ready to go.
You said a 5-minute break, and I think
Okay.
till 10:12 we're waiting.
Okay.
Good, how about you? Now,
Okay, so we're back on track again. And so we were on Robin Dahlgren in terms of whether she's here or not.
Yes, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, I'm gonna restart roll call. Commissioner
Perfect.
Johnson,
Here.
Commissioner DiMattei,
Here.
Commissioner Dahlgren,
Here.
Commissioner Rontine,
Here.
Commissioner Watts,
Here.
Commissioner Woodward.
Here.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'd like to welcome the folks in the audience and everyone that's online to today's meeting, Planning Commission meeting, which is open to both virtual and in-person participation and may be observed online through the Placer County website. If you would like to make a public comment, please fill out a speaker slip for those folks that are here in the audience, which is located on the table near the entrance, and place it in the basket. For members of the public attending via Zoom, please raise your hand with the hand icon at the bottom of the page. If you are calling in, please press 9 and raise your hand. Please be prepared to speak at the time I open the public comment for a specific item you would like to address, which may include public comment for matters not on the agenda, and a consent item or a hearing item. Each commenter will be entitled to 3 minutes of comment time. Thank you for your patience as we work to ensure that each citizen who wishes to comment has the opportunity to do so. Please be advised that today's hearing is being recorded. Okay, so we'll ask the director to give us a report.
Sounds like it. Okay, good morning, Commissioners. Chris Pahuli, Planning Director. I have a handful of items for you with my update today. I think I'll start with a little bit of housekeeping. Wanted to note that we will not be having a December 28th Planning Commission meeting. This will be the last meeting of the year here today. Our next meeting will be January 11th, back in Auburn. At that January 11th meeting, just wanted to note a couple of things. We will be doing election of officers at the January 11th meeting, so that's something to keep in mind. I do want to take the opportunity to thank Chair Johnson for his work this year. I think this has been a great year. There's been a lot of items that that you've considered, and he's done a fantastic job with managing the commission, leading the meetings and managing the commission's business this year. So thank you, Chair Johnson. Also want to mention at the January 11th meeting, there will be an item. It's a large solar project in western Placer County. We will be providing you with information on that before. If you'd like to get ahead, there was an environmental document that was already prepared for that. It was prepared by SMUD. It's a SMUD project. They're the applicant for the project, so we will send out information to you so that if you'd like to get ahead and review that environmental document, you may want to do so. The last housekeeping item, or I guess 2 more housekeeping items. One is that the clerk of the board will be taking over for clerking of the meetings in January, so that January 11th meeting. I think maybe at the last meeting I might have said that this was Andrea's last meeting, which didn't exactly play out that way, so we're happy to have her here today. But in January, we will be transitioning to the clerk of the board. They will be doing the communication with the commissioners. They will be putting the agenda packages together and distributing them to you, and be your primary contact as it relates to clerking. We'll get an email out to you before the end of the year with the contact information for the clerk of the board so that you're able to communicate them if you need to. And then the last housekeeping item is related to the upcoming Planning Commissioner training or academy put on by the League of California Cities. A number of you attended that last year. It is coming up again in March. It's March 6th through 8th. We will be sending out some information on that to all of the commissioners. I really hope that all of you can join. It was a great event last year. I suspect it will be another great event, and having all of your participation is really, really beneficial. So with that, I want to transition into a couple of updates for you on projects that have moved on to the Board of Supervisors and been considered. The first item that I want to mention is the Tykert entitlement rescission and rezone that was considered by the board on November 28th and was approved. The Morgan Crossing appeal that the Planning Commission previously heard and upheld the staff's recommendation to determine that that application was incomplete. They appealed the Planning Commission's decision that went on to the board. The board also upheld staff's determination, ultimately agreed with the Planning Commission, and determined that the application was incomplete. So that was decided on also on November 28th, and that's where that project stands at this point. The board last week considered the Frisvold subdivision entitlement package that is in the Riolo specific plan area. That entitlement package was approved. The board considered on November 27th at a workshop the housing rezone program. And so at that hearing, planning staff were recommending that the board provide direction on the list of properties to be included in the housing rezone program. Staff was recommending all voluntary participants remain on the housing rezone program, and all property owners that have indicated that they did not want their property to be rezoned to be removed from further consideration. With that voluntary participation, there was a pretty significant buffer of units that staff was recommending the board established. Following a significant amount of public testimony, the board provided direction to staff to remove the sites that had indicated that they were not voluntary participants, and they also provided direction to staff to really cull the list quite a bit more. The request was, or the direction rather, was that they did not want a large buffer, but rather a small buffer. Looking to make it a little bit more equitable with the distribution of properties per community plan area. Staff is working on removing additional sites for further consideration. We do intend to go back to the Board of Supervisors in early February with another workshop to discuss the properties and get further direction. And so I will be keeping you updated on when that hearing will be taking place. In addition, on that project, I did want to let the Planning Commission know that it's likely that in late February, given the way the timeline is working for that project, it's likely that in late February we will be in front of the Planning Commission with a hearing to receive comments on the draft EIR. So we're moving that project forward in a rather aggressive timeline to meet the state statutory requirements of having this completed by May 15th of 2024, and so that's going to require a number of hearings coming up in the next 4 or 5 months to get to that point. The last item that I wanted to mention is that I believe that at your last meeting you considered the variance request for the Simpson water feature in the Granite Bay community. That determination that the Planning Commission made that the project was not subject to a variance request, and directed staff to make further changes to the zoning ordinance related to that determination, that a building permit was not required, that the project was not a structure and did not require a variance for consideration. That decision of the Planning Commission was appealed by neighbors of the Hidden Lakes Estates community. And that appeal hearing is set for January 23rd at the Board of Supervisors. So wanted to provide you with that update as well. That concludes the Planning Director's report, and I'm happy to answer questions from the commissioners.
Chris, this is Robin. Can you hear me?
I can?
The planning commission, the supervisors, when they talked about the rezoning project with Callie at the last meeting, I was listening in. One of the other things they wanted you all to do was to look at county properties because they were not included in that process.
That is correct. The board did ask that we look at additional county properties for consideration on our residential inventory, and staff is going through that process as we're working on removing sites from the list as well. So
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Any more?
I have nothing.
Okay, thank you, Chris.
Thanks, Chris.
Okay, at this time, I'll open it up for public comment on anything that's not currently on the agenda today. And so is there anybody in the audience that has a comment on something that's not on the agenda? Seeing none, is anybody online wanting to make a comment on anything not on the agenda? And seeing none there. And so with that, we will move on to our consent agenda. And we have 3 items on the agenda. One is our last meeting notes, and then the schedule for next year, which is pretty much the same as what it was this year. And then also there's a proposal in the city of, not in the city, in the area of Loomis for the school district that they have requested some review from the Planning Commission. So is there anybody on the commission that wishes to pull an item?
Nope.
Seeing none? Okay, anybody in the audience? Anybody online? Okay. With that, no need to pull the item from the agenda, and it's the consent agenda, so we're looking for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda. Oh, sorry. I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Okay, roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner DeMattei and a second from Commissioner Watts. Commissioner Johnson,
Yes?
Commissioner DeMattei,
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren,
Yes.
Commissioner Ronteen,
Yes.
Commissioner Watts,
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward.
Is this vote approving the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, so I abstain.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, what we'll do is we'll move forward with the first item on our agenda, which is the Grand Lebacan Small Cell Conditional Use Permit. And so, let me see, who do we have here that's presenting this?
Good morning. I'm Janie Balvin with the Planning Services Division. And I'm here to present the Grand Lebacan Telecommunication Facility Conditional Use Permit. So I'll go quickly through the project details and then summarize the analysis and conclude with staff's recommendation. This is a request for approval of a conditional use permit for an AT&T telecommunication facility at the Grand Lebacan Resort. Specifically, the project is 4 AT&T cellular antennas mounted in 3 locations indicated by the red circles on the graphic here, with support equipment housed inside a utility room in the main lodge indicated here in yellow. The antennas are roof mounted onto the eaves of 2 of the resort's buildings and painted to match those buildings. Existing utility conduits are being utilized to connect the antennas to the support equipment in the utility room. So there isn't any excavation or ground disturbance proposed as part of this project, and there's not any tree removal. Again, this project is located in the Grand Lebacan Resort, which is outlined in blue on this map here, just south of Tahoe City. This location is characterized by dense forest and unique topography, as it is set in a recessed valley, isolated from nearby developed areas in North Lake Tahoe, which contributes to the area's poor cellular reception here. Again, the project is outlined in blue on this zoning map, and this map shows the project is zoned tourist plan development in the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, where transmission and receiving facilities require a conditional use permit. And it's surrounded on 3 sides by recreation zoning with residential zoning to the east, which is a developed neighborhood. There are several buildings as part of the Grand Lebacan Resort, but the 2 associated with this project are referred to by the resort as Deer Wander and Bear Paw. On Bear Paw will be mounted 1 antenna, and Deer Wander will have 3 antennas in 2 locations, as shown on this elevation plan. There are 2 perspectives here on the slide. The antennas are circled in red. The bottom perspective shows antennas mounted at either end of the building on the eaves of the north and south side. And the top perspective is the north perspective, of which I have a photographic simulation here. So you can see the white box with the arrow pointing at the antenna, which is painted brown to match the building. And here is a photo simulation of the other side of Deer Wander, where 2 antennas are proposed to be mounted on the eave. This is the proposed elevation plan for the Bear Paw building, where a single AT&T antenna is proposed, circled in these 2 perspectives in red here. And this is the corresponding photographic simulation. So to summarize the project review topics discussed in depth in the staff report, the project is consistent with the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, which identifies Grand Lebacan as an area for multi-use, tourist-oriented development. This facility won't conflict with existing tourist and commercial uses and will provide cellular connectivity to support those tourist uses, as well as any necessary emergency response situations. The project, once constructed, doesn't have any associated noise or traffic impacts. Existing conditions with regard to height and setbacks aren't changing because the equipment is all attached to or inside existing permitted structures. The project was also submitted to the Tahoe Regional Planning Agency for their required permitting, and TRPA reviewed the height and design of the project under their code and approved it as submitted here. Because the aesthetics and visual impacts were reviewed and conditioned under TRPA approval, and Placer County has adopted TRPA's design review standards and our regulations in the TBAP, the Tahoe Basin Area Plan, a design review agreement was not required by the county in an effort to streamline this permitting process. Therefore, the project will be presented to the Tahoe Design Review Committee at their next scheduled meeting as an information item only, and we'll update them on the project and your action today. The project was presented to the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council on November 9th of this year for action, where they voted 6-0 to recommend that the Planning Commission approve the conditional use permit. And this is a coverage map of the area before the project and after. And one question brought forward at NITRAC was whether the facility would serve AT&T customers only. And AT&T is the only carrier as part of this project, and staff has not received requests for facilities here from other carriers at this time. The design only lends itself to one carrier as a small-scale project designed to blend with the buildings and not require ground disturbance or tree removal. And while it may not benefit customers of other providers, staff saw the project as a general improvement to the current condition, especially with regard to medical or fire emergency responses. Also, it was the design approach supported by the property owner. And so staff recommends that the Planning Commission Find that the project is categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to provisions of Section 15311 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.130 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance as Class 11 accessory structures. And approve the conditional use permit for a telecommunication facility consisting of 4 cellular panel antennas roof-mounted on 2 existing structures on the Grand Lebacan property in Tahoe City at 725 Grand Lebacan Road, supported by the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report. And with that, I can answer any questions that you may have.
Okay, questions from the commission? Okay. No questions at this time.
Thank you.
Okay, so is the applicant here?
Yes.
Okay,
Alrighty. Thank you. My name is Kevin Gallagher. I'm here with Complete Wireless Consulting on behalf of AT&T Mobility, the applicant for the project. I respectfully ask the commission to approve the project as recommended by staff. I do have a brief presentation. I will skip quickly through the items staff has already covered in terms of the general design and provide a bit more information on the history of the project. So staff have already gone through the project details of 4 rooftop antennas and no ground disturbance. When the resort originally put in their internet, all of the internet comes in through the main lodge, and conduits run out to all of the buildings. So we're simply using those conduits, so there'll be no need for ground disturbance. In terms of the area, this is a very challenging area to cover. The mountains are lovely. They bring in tourists. They also make cell coverage extremely difficult, particularly for Grand Lebacan, where, let's see, is that the thing? In this area where, I don't know how familiar everyone is with the resort. It's quite close by. But it's essentially in a bowl where there are hills and elevations all around it. So at present, it doesn't really have any reliable coverage, unless I believe if you get to kind of the very top of the hill at the edge of it, there are spots where you can see the Kings Beach cell site. But other than that, there's no coverage in the area, which is a major concern. So what, and here you can see the existing coverage. Here's the nearest facility in Kings Beach. As you can see with terrain, it does not get over the hills, although there is some areas in the hills behind the resort. But the resort area, the resort buildings are not currently covered. So what this facility would do, it'll fill in that area where there currently is no coverage. Now, oftentimes when we have these applications, we need to put in a new freestanding facility, often stealth, monopines, et cetera. We found in this instance, given the limited geographic area and also given the hills on all sides, that we could efficiently cover the resort through rooftop antennas. This was actually fairly difficult. Here's again a little closer view of that, of what it looks like in getting the resort. And then I lost my train of thought, as one sometimes does. PowerPoints to me are often more of a hindrance than a help. But here's the resort. For those of you who are not familiar, when you come in the resort, you come up Grand Lebacan Road, and there's essentially 3 levels. There's a lower level here, well, an even lower one if you include the tennis courts, a middle level, and then an upper level, and there's quite a bit of terrain change. So we walked the entire property with the IT director of the resort to try to find a location on the buildings that could most efficiently cover. This was the solution that we ultimately landed on. Oftentimes for these small cells, if you just have a single omni antenna in a location that's high, you can cover everything. But because of the terrain, we needed the 4 antennas spread out, facing in different ways. Staff already kind of ran through where they cover, but essentially it's 1 to the south, pointing that way, 1 also pointing this way, and then 2 over here, pointing out this way, covering the remainder of the resort. From there, staff have already run through the appearances of it, but they'll be painted to match. They'll be mounted on the eaves of the building to inobtrusively provide coverage with a minimal amount of visual clutter. With that, if the board has any questions, that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Questions? Okay, well, I do have one question.
Sure.
Okay, let me see, so you've read the conditions, and are you supportive of the conditions that you read?
Yeah, we support the conditions.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, all right.
Okay, I'll open it up for public comment. Anybody in the audience? Anybody online? Okay, no public or comments at all. So with that, I guess staff or applicant, do you have anything more to say?
No, sir.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the commission then. We'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the commission.
I have no further questions. I have no further comment.
Okay, well then, what we normally do when nobody has any comments, we,
Go to recommendation.
yeah, we go more to recommendations, but we make a, what are you gonna do, approve it or what?
I'm ready to make a
Yeah.
motion.
I'll make a motion.
I'm ready to make a motion. I can
Okay.
read it easily, so.
Oh, thank you. I
Yeah.
can't see.
I recommend that we find that the project is categorically exempt from review under CEQA pursuant to provisions of section 15311 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and section 18.36.130 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 11 accessory structures.
Okay,
Second.
roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Rontine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Further recommend that we approve the California use permit for a telecommunications facility consisting of 4 cellular panel antennas, roof mounted on 2 existing structures on the Grand Labacan property in Tahoe City at 725 Grand Labacan Road, supported by the findings and subject to the conditions of approval in the staff report.
Second?
Second.
Okay, roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Woodward and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Rontine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, thank you. That is approved. So we'll move on to the next item, which is the Ostriker garage rebuild. And I see Stacy's going to make a presentation here.
Yes. Good morning. Is that okay? Oh. Good morning, Chair Johnson and fellow planning commissioners. Great to have you guys up here in Tahoe today. I am going to present to you a subdivision modification to quickly get you oriented as to where the site is located. It is in the Tahoe Basin, specifically within the Fulton Acre subdivision unit number 3, located off of Carnelian Circle at 790, and that is lot 202. The property is located within a residential zone district, specifically the Cedar Flat subdistrict of our Tahoe Basin area plan, and is surrounded by residential with conservation towards the rear of its property. The subdivision map was approved in 1957, of which you see all the lots here on this subdivision map were legally recorded. And uniquely with the recordation of this subdivision map, they also recorded a front mapped setback of 20 feet. So the applicant is here today requesting to encroach into that mapped 20-foot setback. And so just to get you a little more acquainted as to what the physical conditions are like, this is the existing garage and the residence. Let me see if I can get this right. The existing residence is located here. This is the existing 2-car garage that will be removed, and I'll go into greater detail in a second. But here I'd like to point out this rather steep driveway that the applicants have to contend with. Unfortunately, it does cause quite a bit of issue in the wintertime, including vehicles, actually parked vehicles, I should say, sliding down the driveway into the neighboring properties across the street, which does not lend itself to neighborly character. So, but also providing access into the main residence. So, in other words, if someone came over and parked, it's also very difficult to walk up that driveway in snowy and icy conditions. So here's a view, just so you can get a sense of where the garage is located, the steep driveway, the road is here, and then the existing single-family residence is here. And so the applicants are requesting an encroachment into that front mapped setback. They are proposing a 12-foot setback for the construction of a 3-car garage with an additional dwelling unit or ADU above it, together with a second-story covered deck, and then an attached covered walkway, which will provide covered access from the driveway and the garage into the existing single-family residence. I would like to point out a couple things on this slide. The additional dwelling unit, so the living space of the dwelling unit, does not encroach into that map setback. Rather, just the covered deck does of the ADU. Also, if the subdivision modification is approved, the driveway would be reduced in length, which would result in a couple different things. One, it allows them to reduce also the slope of the driveway, so it would be about 10%, which would definitely help in a lot of the issues that they're experiencing with today. But also with that reduction of the driveway length, there is still adequate snow storage to be located over here in this area of which it currently exists today. And so also with regards to snow, the Department of Public Works also reviewed this project, reviewing it for adequate snow storage areas and also to ensure that vehicles parked in front of the garage are not sticking out into the traveled way. And in this case, with this particular proposal, the distance from the edge of traveled way to the face of the garage is 28 feet. And that is adequate distance for a vehicle to park in front of the garage and not be sticking out into the traveled way. So as I mentioned, there is an additional dwelling unit proposed above the garage, the 3-car garage, which is located in this picture. And this, I just like to point out, this is the area of the covered deck that would be encroaching into that front setback, together with the associated covered walkway. But again, the living space of the additional dwelling unit is located behind that 20-foot mapped setback. So these are building elevations showing the design of the building. Again, this is the 3-car garage with the additional dwelling unit above with the covered deck, and then the covered protected entryway or walkway that would provide access both to the additional dwelling unit and then onto the single-family residence. So staff reviewed the request and first determined that the proposed uses of a detached garage and additional dwelling unit are consistent with residential uses of the Tahoe Basin Area Plan. We also considered that with the proposal, there are some unique circumstances that would grant or support the approval of this map modification, including that steep driveway, and also the location of where the existing single-family residence is. It's located at an angle, so it really was difficult for the applicant to squeeze this garage in while at the same time providing a reduced slope, which is resulting in quite a big cut and grading to get that slope down. And then also staff visited the site and determined that it's not unusual for structures to be located closer to the street as the applicant is requesting. And that's just what this map here shows. It's also part of your packet. But we just wanted to further confirm that through our analysis, we also determined that this design proposed and its distance and encroachment into the map setback would be compatible with the neighborhood and continue with the characteristics of residential. So with that, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission find that the project be categorically exempt per SEQA, Section 15303, and Section 18.36.050 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, specifically Class 3, new construction of small structures, and also Section 15305 of the CEQA guidelines, and Section 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5, minor alterations in land use limitations. And also, staff is recommending that the Planning Commission approve the subdivision modification to reduce the mapped 20-foot setback to 12 feet measured from the front property line, 11 feet to the eaves of that proposed structure of the 3-car garage with an attached covered walkway and a second-story covered deck and an ADU for the proposed project based on the findings contained in the staff report and subject to the conditions of approval. So with that, that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
I have two.
Okay.
Okay. First is there any code, law, or guidance that affects a decision of the commission with regards to the establishment of an ADU in this case? In other words, I thought there was a kind of a positive outlook on the construction of ADUs set in code or perhaps law, and I just am curious if that affects this at all.
No. This map modification is really just for the encroachment into the front setback. We're just acknowledging the additional dwelling unit because of the covered deck area that's accessory to that additional dwelling unit that is located or is encroaching into that map modification.
I see.
So the ADU is allowed, and we incorporated that. I don't know if Clayton wants to add.
Yeah, I think that response is great. The ADU by itself would have been allowed and would have been permissible and wouldn't be before your commission.
It's the encroachment.
Encroachment in the setback that needs the map modification.
Okay. So a second question, probably Clayton, and this is really for my education, not necessarily even affecting how I feel about this. When you have an ADU that has a secondary purpose, like a garage, does that affect the kind of viewpoint that ADUs are either by right or, in some cases that they are permissible when they might not otherwise be, that sort of thing?
No. So an ADU is allowed to have up to a 1,200 square feet of habitable square footage. Many ADUs do have a parking garage as a component of the project, and we do have requirements about how large that garage can be as a percentage, but they are able to include parking as part of that ADU, a garage as part of that ADU.
Okay. Thanks.
Okay, more questions? Yeah.
According to the drawings, it looks like the walkway will be attached from the garage to the house. Is that correct or not correct? I thought
Yes,
you mentioned that it would be now attached and not detached. So does that make it attached?
So it doesn't meet the definition of attached. So the definition of attached means it has to be, as long as, it has to be as wide as it is long for it to be, and share the same common wall for it to be deemed attached. So in this case, if you can see right here, we don't meet the definition of attached, so therefore it's detached.
Okay, thank you.
Any others? Well, I do have a question too. And this is maybe just for education purposes too. In the past, TRPA has been sensitive to additional ground cover. And so I'm wondering, does this project have to go before the TRPA board also?
No, they do not. They have what we call coverage verification, which does allow for this for the coverage proposed with this project. A lot of the coverage that exists today is banked, is what we would call, so that coverage would be also applied to the construction of this. So while they are adding a little bit more coverage, it is within the coverage verification that was approved for this project, or for this property, or this site.
Okay, thank you, appreciate it.
One more question, sorry. If you can go back to slide 22.
Yeah. Oh, whoops, going the wrong way, sorry.
That's a pretty steep driveway. Are they gonna be able to reduce that from, looks like, what, 20% to maybe, you said
Yes.
10%?
It is 10% is what's proposed, correct.
Okay, then that should be it. Okay, that was all. Thank you.
Okay. I'll go back to the.
Okay, well, thank you, Stacy. Okay, the applicant, are you here?
I am online.
Okay, yeah, well, go ahead then.
Okay, thank you guys for hearing this, and thank you, Stacy, for the presentation. I'd like to just add to what Stacy presented. The current garage is actually within the side setback, so essentially encroaching on my neighbor's property. And so, you know, that kind of limited us. Like we couldn't reuse that existing garage anyway. So, you know, the design is to essentially scrap it, bring the new garage closer to the road to reduce the slope, and provide a covered walkway, mostly to deal with the snow egress and, you know, entrance and exit from the house in the winter. I think Stacy's presentation pretty much summarized everything I had, unless you guys had any specific questions for me.
Chair Johnson,
Any specific questions, folks?
Chair Johnson, if we can have the applicant state their name for the record.
Oh, yeah, could you state your name, please?
Yeah, sorry about that. So my name's Andrew Ostriker. So I'm a structural engineer, and this is also my house. So I'm the one who's doing the design.
Okay, thank you, and I have a question for you too.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming that you've read the conditions and are supportive of the conditions that are proposed for this project. Is that true?
Yeah, so I've read the conditions. I would respectfully ask that one of those be reconsidered. And specifically, that's item number 5, which is rental of the accessory dwelling unit. You know, it's my opinion that Placer County and TRPA has a ADU, or I guess a short-term rental requirement, and that seems like this would be independent of this specific request to map modify the property. And I guess at the heart of it, like, you know, if this project is approved and built, we're going to be bound to the rules of Placer County and TRPA for the short-term rental. And so I don't necessarily see why it's, why we need to have this specific item in this application.
Okay, so condition 5 has to do with a 30-day requirement for rentals of the unit. You can't do it less than 30 days. And so basically, staff, do you have some thoughts on that?
I'll start off, and I don't know if others want to add to it. And I didn't introduce myself before. Clayton Cook, Supervising Deputy County Counsel. The condition number 5 states rental of the accessory dwelling unit for 30 days or less is prohibited. That statement's in line with our ADU requirements in our county code. The construction of an ADU cannot be used for a short-term rental purpose. So that's why the condition's in there.
Okay, so basically it's informational, but it does let the applicant know that the requirement is there. Okay. Okay, you follow that, Mr. Ostriker?
Okay.
Okay. So then I assume that you're supportive of the conditions then?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I'll open it up to the public now. Is there anybody in the audience that has a public comment?
Oh, no, I'll wait.
Oh, you have a question?
No, I'll wait till after you have the public.
Okay. Okay, is there anybody in the audience that has a comment? Anybody online? Okay, no public comment, so I will close the public comment. And staff, you have anything to add? Mr. Ostriker, do you have anything to add?
I do not.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to staff then. I mean, back to the commission.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would like to make the motion, but I can't read it effectively. So would some other member of the commission?
Commissioner
please-
Watts, we can read it into the record for you.
Okay.
So the first item would be to find that the project is categorically exempt from environmental review pursuant to provisions of Section 15303 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.050 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 3, new construction of small structures, and Section 15305 of the California Environmental Quality Act guidelines and Section 18.36.070 of the Placer County Environmental Review Ordinance, Class 5, minor alterations in land use limitations.
Second.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. And so, roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Brownteen?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
And the second one is to approve the subdivision map modification to reduce the mapped 20-foot front setback to 12 feet, 11 feet to eaves, in order to construct a 3-car garage with an attached covered walkway and a second-story covered deck and accessory dwelling unit for the Ostriker Garage Rebuild Project, PLN 23-00083, based on the findings and recommended conditions of approval included in the staff report.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Brownteen?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, with that, it's approved. And let me see, I might mention that I forgot on the first item and this item are both appealable to the Board of Supervisors. If somebody would like to appeal it, they need to submit their appeal within 10 days to the Planning Department. Okay, with that, we're going to take a 15-minute break. And so that means that we will be re-adjourning at 11:15. Okay, the next item on the agenda is a Northstar Community Services District project to create a wood energy system. And so, staff, you're welcome.
I'm sorry. Did you hear me or should I repeat?
Oh, speak a little bit louder into the microphone if you
Okay,
could.
thank you. I'm Shannon Hill with Placer County Planning Division's Tahoe office, and I'm here to present the Northstar Community Services District Wood Energy System project. The Northstar Community Services District, or NCSD for short, is requesting a conditional use permit to allow the development and operation of an approximately 6,000 square foot wood energy utility facility on a 1.7 acre parcel shared with an existing Northstar fire station. The facility building would include 2 1-megawatt boilers, a thermal storage tank, a fuel storage bin, and a fuel metering bin. In addition, the project would excavate trenches for and place 2,835 linear feet of thermal energy distribution pipeline to be connected to existing heating systems within approximately 14 buildings and facilities, later referred to in this presentation as the connected facilities. The proposed wood energy facility would combust chipped woody biomass to heat water that would be conveyed through distribution pipelines to buildings within the Northstar community that are currently served by natural gas-fired boilers, including residential and commercial space heating, domestic hot water, swimming pools and spas, and potentially snow melt in the village at Northstar Plaza. This slide provides an overview of the proposed project, including removal of hazardous forest biomass, processing of chipped biomass at the proposed facility, and distribution of thermal energy through the distribution pipelines to connected facilities. As shown, the proposed facility would have 2 megawatts of power with the capacity to process 3,800 bone-dry tons, or BDT for short, per year of woody biomass. The proposed facility site is located within the Northstar California Community Ski Resort, approximately 6 miles south of downtown Truckee at 908 Northstar Drive. The proposed facility would be located adjacent to the Northstar Fire Station at 910 Northstar Drive on the same parcel. The thermal energy distribution pipeline would be installed below grade between 900 and 908 Northstar Drive, along Northstar Drive in the public right-of-way, between 908 and 4001 Northstar Drive, and between 8001 Northstar Drive and the Northstar Property Owners Association Recreation Center. In addition, the buildings at 950, 960, 962, 3001, and 5001 Northstar Drive would be connected to the thermal energy distribution pipeline. This slide provides a vicinity map showing the location of the proposed project in Placer County, in addition to the project site in relation to the Truckee town limits, approximately 6 miles to the north, and State Route 267, which is approximately 0.8 miles east of the proposed facility. And this slide shows the proposed facility site plan, including the existing Northstar Fire Station on the parcel, which is adjacent to the south. Chipped woody biomass would be delivered via the upper tarmac, which is right here, to the chip bin here, then transferred on a conveyor belt down to the boiler room here where the woody biomass would be incinerated. The resulting ash would be stored in containers in this ash garage here until there is enough for off-haul by 30-yard, by trucks entering the lower tarmac here. So the trailer trucks would come and pick up the trailers in this area here. In addition to the high-level overview provided on the last slide, this and the following slides provide additional detail on the operational characteristics of the facility. The wood energy system would produce energy in proportion to the heating demand required by the connected facilities and would be operated year-round. The proposed project is intended to enhance NCSD's forest fuels management and defensible space programs, which have been implemented in the community since 2008 in an effort to reduce the risk of catastrophic wildfires. The woody biomass removed from the community under NCSD's existing programs would provide a portion of the fuel for the wood energy system boilers. The facility would also accept woody biomass from other regional sources, and for purposes of the proposed project, regional, as defined, includes locations served by the Tahoe Truckee Sierra Disposal District. Wood chips from biomass material removed from the Northstar community and from other regional sources would be transferred to the facility in large chip vans or tractor trailers, as shown on the last slide, the site plan. Once delivered to the facility, wood chips would be placed on a conveyor belt, passed through metering and stoker augers, and then into the combustor. As the woody biomass is combusted, the resulting heat would heat a closed water loop within each boiler. And after passing through emission control systems, gases from combustion would be directed by a fan through the steam stack. Ash remaining from combustion and emission control systems would be conveyed to a hopper bin and stored until there is sufficient volume to be removed and off-hauled by 30-yard container trailers. This kind of shows an overview of that process on this slide. And continuing the operational characteristics, the proposed facility would have 2 megawatts of power with capacity to process 3,800 ton or BDT per year of woody biomass, and it's estimated that the wood energy system would generate between 140 and 260 tons of ash per year. Ash would be off-hauled and delivered to farms in Sierra Valley for use as soil amendments and or disposed of at off-site at a transfer station or landfill. Combustion of hazardous forest fuels in the proposed facility would reduce the need for open pile burning, and distribution of thermal energy would at least partially offset natural gas usage of the connected facilities. The connected facilities currently consume approximately 50,735 million British thermal units, or MMBTU for short, of energy from natural gas per year, and the proposed project is estimated to meet approximately 99% of the energy demand from these facilities by producing approximately 50,230 MMBTU. The existing natural gas boilers at each of the connected facilities would continue to operate as they normally do, firing automatically when the proposed wood energy system boilers are unable to meet demand. The existing natural gas boilers also would provide redundancy for when the facility is down for routine or periodic maintenance. The proposed project site is located within the Martis Valley Community Plan area and has a land use designation of forest 40 to 640 acre minimum. Typical land uses allowed in this designation include commercial timber production operations and facilities, recreation uses, and necessary public utility and safety facilities. As the proposed project is a public utility facility for the Northstar community, it is consistent with the intent of this land use designation. The proposed project is also consistent with applicable policies of the Martis Valley Community Plan. And just for an example, there are other examples in the staff report, but the proposed project is consistent with policy 4.A.4 of the MVCP, which states that the county shall require that all new development be designed to be compatible with the scale and character of the area. As evidenced by documentation provided in attachment H of the staff report, which depicts proposed building heights and elevations, and as shown on this slide, the proposed facility does not silhouette against the sky above the ridgelines or hilltops, does not detract from the natural background, and blends with existing development on the parcel. As shown in the image on this slide, the proposed facility and associated solar panels, it's right there, are barely visible behind the existing fire station. The staff report provides analysis of compliance with additional policies of the Martis Valley Community Plan, and this is just one example. The proposed project is also consistent with Placer County zoning ordinance. The subject site is zoned forestry, combining building site X, 160 acre minimum parcel size. Allowed land uses, permit requirements, and site development standards in the zoning district are defined in Placer County Code Section 17.12.010. The proposed project is consistent with the allowed use in the zoning district of electric generating plants, which requires a conditional use permit within the forest zoning district. In addition, the proposed project is in compliance with development standards of the forestry zoning district, including required setbacks, site coverage, and height, considering the exceptions to height limits, which are provided in section 17.54.020, subsection D1 of the code, as evidenced in the staff report and analysis, and as shown in attachment F, proposed building setbacks, and attachment H, proposed building height and elevations of the staff report. As shown in those attachments, required setbacks were increased by 4 feet and 6 inches to allow for an additional 4 feet and 6 inches of height above the development standard of 36 feet for the proposed building. Construction and operational emissions associated with the project were analyzed in the environmental document and found to be less than significant for all applicable Placer County Air Pollution Control District thresholds, considering facility emission controls and implementation of standard best management practices for dust control during construction, which are incorporated into the conditions of approval. In addition, the proposed project requires an air pollution control district authority to construct and permit to operate because the facility would constitute a stationary source of air pollutant emissions. Therefore, facility emissions would be monitored by the Air Pollution Control District as a regulatory oversight agency. In addition, with implementation of the proposed project, the environmental document concluded that the project would reduce vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, in comparison to existing conditions by hauling the woody biomass obtained from the Eastern Regional Landfill Materials Recovery Facility, it's a mouthful, to the proposed wood energy facility, which is approximately 25 miles round trip. Whereas the existing practice of the materials recovery facility is to transport this material, meaning woody biomass, to Rio Bravo Rockland, which is approximately 183 miles round trip, Honey Lake Power, which is approximately 196 miles round trip, disposed of at Full Circle Compost in Nevada, which is approximately 153 miles round trip, and or transported to the Lockwood landfill, which is approximately 107 miles round trip. The last item in the slide regarding avoidance of sensitive habitat is covered on the next slide. There are 2 areas in or near the project site and associated thermal energy pipeline with potential to support sensitive habitat, namely a perennial pond. That's right here, and this is near the building site. Where the thermal energy distribution pipeline would cross from the village at Northstar to the NPOA Recreation Center and attach to this bridge here. No direct impacts to these features were identified, and mitigation measure bio-1, as revised by the addendum and incorporated into the recommended conditions of approval as condition number 29, requires installation of exclusion fencing or flagging between the ponds and the pond and associated riparian vegetation and the stream and associated riparian vegetation, and the limits during construction, as well as implementing erosion control and spill prevention measures. And these requirements would minimize the chance for accidental encroachment of construction equipment and personnel into these sensitive areas, and minimize the chance for sedimentation and pollutants to enter the riparian vegetation, freshwater pond, and perennial stream during construction activities. This would ensure that indirect impacts to these areas are avoided or reduced to a less than significant level. And this is an additional exhibit that was provided as part of the addendum, just showing how construction activities avoid, so this is like the perennial stream bank here, and the top of bank indicated by this arrow. So as shown in the exhibit, no disturbance will occur within the creek banks, and no soil, vegetation, or rocks within the creek banks would be moved, removed, or altered. Also, the potential for indirect effects associated with construction and installation of the thermal energy pipeline is considered very low because all asphalt removal and soil disturbance will occur several feet away from the top of bank. So this is where the new equipment will be installed, the pipe that comes and attaches to the side of the bridge and does not impact that stream. Okay, the project has gone through all necessary review and recommendations. At the November 15th, 2023 Development Review Committee meeting, no comments were received on the proposed project, and the DRC took action to recommend approval of the NCSD facility to the Planning Commission, subject to recommended conditions of approval. The proposed project was also presented to the North Tahoe Regional Advisory Council, or NITRAC, as an informational item on September 15th, 2023, and the council members were supportive of the proposed project as presented, however requested that the subsequent presentation to the NITRAC for a recommendation to the Planning Commission include demonstration of compliance with county development standards. The proposed project was presented to the NITRAC on November 9th, 2023, including demonstration of compliance with county development standards, and a recommendation to the Planning Commission was requested by county staff, and the NITRAC voted unanimously with 6 votes yes, 0 no, 0 absent, to recommend to the Planning Commission to approve the conditional use permit. And this slide also just shows the visual simulations of what the proposed facility would look like, to give you an idea from other views. An initial study and mitigated negative declaration was adopted by NCSD's Board of Directors as the CEQA lead agency on June 21st, 2023, in support of the proposed project and conditional use permit. As a CEQA responsible agency, after review of the conditional use permit application submitted by the applicant, an addendum to the ISM&D was requested by Placer County Planning Division staff to further address potential impacts to the perennial stream crossing between the village at Northstar and the MPOA Recreation Center. After the addendum was reviewed and vetted by county staff, the addendum was adopted by the NCSD Board of Directors on November 15th, 2023. Considering the ISM&D and subsequent addendum, staff has concluded that none of the conditions described in CEQA Guidelines Section 15162, calling for the preparation of a subsequent EIR or negative declaration, have occurred. And prior to providing and moving over to the staff recommendation slide, I would like to pass it over to, is it Chris? or to discuss some text changes to the conditions of approval.
All right, thank you, Shannon. Just to provide the commission with a little bit of information, as we began initially processing the application, a decision was made from an initial decision was made from the building division that the district would be able to serve as their own building official. And therefore, the conditions that were structured for this project and were considered by the DRC, as Shannon indicated during her presentation, were based on that determination that they would serve as their own building official. Subsequent conversations have occurred up until before this hearing about that determination. The county has decided that the county would be the reviewing agency and the building official. And in an effort to kind of move the project expeditiously through the process, staff is recommending some revisions to conditions 13 and 14 in the package. I can read those into the record because I know not all of the commissioners and perhaps some of the folks in the audience might not be able to see those, but we do have them up on the screen as well. So I'll read them into the record so that you have that, and then I'll provide a little bit more information. So proposed change to condition 13 would be striking the first sentence from that condition. So the applicant shall prepare and submit an application for a utility encroachment permit to the Engineering and Surveying Division, ESD, for work within the public road rights-of-way. That part of condition 13 would be struck, as well as the end of the second sentence where it says for any work within the county county highway easement. That will also be struck. Moving to condition 14, no language struck from that. However, language added that reads upon, so it mentions that there would be a letter from the district indicating that they will assume responsibility for on-site grading and water quality improvements. And it notes that upon receipt of the letter, ESD, after consultation with NCSD, will determine the appropriate agency to review grading and water quality improvements for the project. If ESD determines that the county is the reviewing agency, the Development Review Committee will determine applicable conditions for those improvements. So the changes that have been made, and as I mentioned, are being brought before you for consideration, would allow for the project to continue to move forward expeditiously, assuming Planning Commission approval today, and will allow for the district to potentially request from the Board of Supervisors a determination about serving as the building official for the project. Should they not request that consideration, or should that consideration not be granted by the board, then the Development Review Committee, DRC, would add conditions relative to the review of the improvement plans and building permits that would be added to the conditions of approval. So I'll see if Clayton perhaps has anything to add to what I've just said before we continue on with the presentation and then have questions from the commissioners.
Yeah, I would just note that the Building Division's determination that this project would be subject to county authority for building permit issuance and inspections is something that I've looked at, and I concur with their determination based on the statutes. There is the opportunity in our county code that the district could still seek delegated authority from the County Board of Supervisors to act as its own building official for the project. There is a mechanism in our county code for that if the district does determine they want to do that. And that's the reason for the language here. It gives them the option. If they do go to the Board of Supervisors and get that authority, then they could still act as the applicable building official for the project.
Okay, we open for questions at this point?
One quick question. I had a lot of questions on this. You've answered most of them, it seems. But Condition 16 you've looked at, obviously. And you don't believe that that needs to be modified at all? Yeah, I mean, it refers to a letter where the NCSD will assume full responsibility, et cetera?
Yes, so condition 16 is actually the condition, the changes to condition of approval 14 track the same language in 16, and that the district would submit a letter to the county, and then we would review it. And if they have taken the appropriate action in line with that letter, including going to the Board of Supervisors and getting authority, then the county may ultimately determine that they're the building official and they can review it. So, yes, condition of approval 16 is appropriate, is worded, and matches the language where.
That you're modifying for 14?
Recommended
Oh, I
for
see,
14.
okay.
Okay, any other questions? Okay,
I would-
oh, go ahead.
Sorry.
Just to mention, Commissioners, if there aren't any other questions, it sounds like there are, but once they're not, Shannon does have I think maybe a slide or two to wrap up her presentation.
I'll wait.
Okay, yeah, I do have a question. And in the staff report, I noted that the NCSD is a unincorporated special district, and that's the basis for this change that we're talking about?
Yes, so special districts do have authority under certain mechanisms to act as their own building officials. That is one of the permissible options in the county code, as long as they've gotten Board of Supervisors approval to do so.
Okay, this one says unincorporated, though. Is that correct?
I would have to look at the district as to whether they're incorporated or unincorporated, but I don't know that it makes a big difference for purposes of this determination on building official authority.
Okay, any further questions?
No, she's got some more to presentate.
Or you still have more to go?
Yes.
Okay, go ahead.
One more. That was a little pause just to read in those proposed changes to the conditions. That does not change staff's recommendation for the project, as that is outside there's conditions of approval to address it, as Clayton and Chris covered. So just based on the analysis presented in this presentation, staff recommends that the Planning Commission take the following actions. Consider the ISM&D and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program prepared by NCSD and adopted by their Board of Directors on June 21st, 2023 as the CEQA lead agency. Also consider the supplemental addendum prepared for the project to further address potential impacts to a perennial stream between the southeastern end of the village at Northstar and the MPOA Recreation Center, adopted by the NCSD Board of Directors on November 15th, 2023 as the CEQA lead agency, and to approve the conditional use permit for proposed operation of the NCSD Wood Energy Facility project subject to the recommended conditions of approval as revised and supported by the findings contained in the staff report. So now, that concludes the presentation, and happy to answer any other questions.
Further questions? Okay, I guess you're off the hook for the moment.
Sorry.
I'm sorry, jumping in at the wrong time. I'll wait.
Oh, okay.
Bring it back.
I've got one, actually two, I think. Well, let's just make it one pre-public comment. And just a statement too. In previous times up here at Tahoe, I've indicated that I had a fractional home at Northstar. That would, I think, probably generate a recusal in this case. However, that home is not mine anymore, so it's been sold, so I have no equity in Northstar at all. And so one question prior to public comment. I've driven this road a million times because I had that home. There are times of the day, particularly in the winter, where it seems as if Northstar's transportation system, which is pretty incredible actually, is a bit overwhelmed, particularly when people are trying to get to parking on the, I guess it would be the east parking area. And they wind up walking down that road, which is shown on, I think, slide 32 or whatever. But that road narrows down there quite a bit. And I'm just curious, is there any project or plan that you're aware of that is ultimately going to expand that road in any way, shape, or form? Because I have literally seen hundreds of people on that road walking on the side of it, going out to their cars when the transportation system's been overwhelmed. And now we're talking about putting semis on that road during certain periods of the day. So I'm just curious about if there's any idea about that, and if there's any potential modification coming or enhancement coming that you're aware of from the Northstar transportation system, perhaps the addition of another bus or whatever.
Not that I'm aware of, but the applicant may be able to speak to that.
Okay, sure. Yeah.
Thanks.
Thank you. Mike Stodmeyer, I'm the general manager of the Northstar CSD. I can try to address, I think, two of the points relative to the road condition in terms of the shuttle system. That would be a Val Corp question. I think there might be a rep here that may be able to answer that. I'm not sure. But in regards to the road, we also maintain the roads as under a contract with Placer County. That's one of the things we do. And we do have a plan to repave Northstar Drive after we trench down it with the pipes for this, which is novel. And with that, to do some widening to the extent that we can. There are some topographical limitations given the topography and the stream crossing in West Martis Creek in that area, so we'll do the best we can. And then I might add, we're also the lead agency on the project to complete the Martis Valley Trail, which you may have seen if you've driven across the valley, but it will continue from the Castle Peak drop-off at the roundabout on the south side of Northstar Drive to the back end of the village, which will allow a lot of that pedestrian traffic to find a way completely off-road because it will be on the trail. So hopefully those help with your questions.
Would that, I mean, is that trail going to actually be suitable for passage during the winter?
Yeah, we, in fact, last month, our board approved a contract amendment with the county to introduce snow removal to the suite of services we provide and the maintenance of that trail system. So, yeah.
Okay, that's
much like
great.
it is in Olympic Valley.
And just so you know, I mean, I've been there a lot, and transportation system is generally great, but when it's not, that road can be a problem. So
Yeah.
it sounds like you're working, and I appreciate that. Thank you.
You bet.
Okay, further questions? Okay, at this time, we'll invite the applicant to come forward.
Hello again, still Mike Stodmeyer here, Northstar CSD GM. Thanks for your time this morning and your attention to this critical project. You may be asking yourself, why is the Community Services District taking on such a thing? I actually asked myself that question and did so about an hour ago this morning. But the reason is we are in the, as mentioned in the presentation that Shannon gave, we are in the forest management business and the defensible space business under our fire department that we oversee. Those two activities generate literally tons of woody biomass. In our case, it could be anywhere from 250 to 750, 800 bone-dry tons a year. And what we've seen over the course of this time doing this activity, the woody material in terms of outlets for disposal have diminished to the point where most of it, if the market conditions allow, are going over 100 miles away to either Rio Bravo in Rockland at the cogen plant there or Honey Lake at great cost, to the point where we're paying now more in our region for disposal of biomass than garbage, which, to use a technical term, is stupid in my opinion, and others as well. It's eroding our ability to do this critical work of reducing the threat of catastrophic wildfire by removing hazardous forest fuels that had been built up for centuries, or over the course of the last century. That's the problem. We've been at this for a while. In fact, the U.S. Forest Service Wood and Education Resource Center out of West Virginia funded a feasibility study for us in 2020, and we came up with this project statement, which I like to make sure folks understand as to why we're doing this, and I'll just read it real quick. NCSD seeks to improve the economic viability, environmental impact, and overall effectiveness of removing and repurposing forest biomass in order to reduce wildfire risk and restore forest and watershed health. That's why we took this on. And to speak a little bit more to that, in terms of I spoke a little bit about the economic viability, right? We're paying more than garbage. It used to be $1,500 an acre to treat our forests. We're up to $4,500, $5,000, in part due to the increased cost of disposal. We burn 1,000 piles a year, which is not ideal. You've seen the smoke, maybe not so much today, and in certain days it's really bad. We're not going to eliminate pile burning, but we will be able to reduce that to a point that hopefully lessens the public impact. Burning also leaves scars in the forest floor, which isn't ideal. You might ask, why don't we just masticate it in the forest? Sometimes we do. Sometimes the permits don't allow for it. Again, it's not ideal. You're rearranging the fuel. It's still there. Some of it decomposes in a way that releases methane, which isn't great for the environment, as we know. And at the end of the day, some of it needs to come out. In fact, we were masticating on top of Brockway Summit. Mastication is essentially chipping in place in the woods. And a spark was generated that caused a fire. We actually had to put out a fire because of forest management we were doing as a result of the mastication. So if that had happened on the wrong day, it would have been a different story. You probably would have heard about it. And so we need to do better. And as a region, we're looking at anywhere from 30 to 100,000 bone-dry tons of material within a 30-mile radius of this building that needs a home to go to. As we've noted, this is only 3,800 bone-dry tons. This is one of those rare cases where if you take more than you give, you're actually doing a good thing. We produce, like I said, 250 to 750. This facility is going to take down 3,800, so we're helping the region, right? Others that are trying to do work in the basin, the other resorts, our communities, our friends in the town of Truckee and whatnot are all fighting this battle of what do we do with this material. A little bit more on the economics. Rio Bravo, we need to get paid, or I should say the contractor that runs the Eastern Regional Landfill needs to get paid $35 a bone-dry ton in order at Rio Bravo in order to break even on the disposal of this material. The analysis that we've done indicates that can drop to $10 a bone-dry ton if we can create a local outlet right here. So right off the bat, you're taking down 2/3 of the cost of the disposal by reducing that off-site trucking and taking it into your own destiny. Rio Bravo was shut down for a couple of months this past fall. Not ideal when all the material's coming in. It just builds up in our communities. Economic impact as well. Our facility is being designed in such a way to generate some net operating proceeds that go right back into forest remediation. Our constituents in the village, the new towers in the village, built under brand new building codes, all lost their fire insurance. It's cost prohibitive for them to obtain insurance. They're going without insurance. That reduces property values, not ideal for agencies like ourselves that depend on that. In addition, we are looking at the ability to take down $500,000 or more of natural gas, a fossil fuel, in which there is no renewable natural gas, figuratively or literally, in the pipeline with renewable resource of wood energy. So the economics are there. The effectiveness is what we're talking about. We talked about the environment. We're up against a race of time here. We had a little reprieve with the winter we got last year. We don't expect that to continue. I was in a meeting in this room probably about 10 years ago, and the fire chief said at the time, these forests don't know it, but 30% of these trees are dead. I said, really? Yeah, they just don't know yet because of the droughts. and the disease. And we're seeing that now. The mortality, even after this great winter, is already embedded in these trees. The mortality rate, because of the drought and the disease, you'll see it if you look out your window driving back over Donner Summit. A lot of dead trees. This problem's not going to go away because of one good winter. This material has been literally increasing. The material coming out of the woods as a result of this has been increasing at a rate of 30% per year for the past couple of years, and we don't expect that to change anytime soon. So anyways, just want to give you a little bit more of a high-level reason as to why we're here today and why this project is so important and critical. And you know, this is the first time Placer County's had to contemplate permitting a project like this. And so it's been a little bit of a struggle, and we're still working through some of those struggles, as you may have seen with the language additions, but we're committed to working with the county to get through those because of the importance of this. I might add that these projects are not novel elsewhere. We have done our due diligence. We didn't get to go to Europe, but they've been operating in Europe for decades and decades. We did get to go back east and look at the manufacturer that we've selected as our vendor for the facility of the boiler to see these plants in action, working in sensitive communities like school sites and hospitals and urban centers with no impact. In fact, the one on the school site, they liked it so much they built another one 5 years later, and still, you know, they're going out into the forest. They're paying $62 bone dry ton just for the wood. They're just going to get the wood out of the forest. They're not going in the forest for forest mitigation. They're going for the fuel because it makes sense. And so we're confident this project can fit in this environment in our neck of the woods and prove as a demonstration project for others that are contemplating, because there are quite a bit of other entities looking at this, including Placer County, to come and see that these projects work. And so with that, I can take any questions, but I'd like to give our project manager a chance to make a quick statement as well.
Okay, go ahead.
Thanks.
So good morning, Commission. Stephanie Holloway, I'm your Deputy CEO. I asked Mike if I could jump in here and I think just add a little bit of regional flavor from the county's perspective of the importance of this project to our region. So I know we talk a lot about board priorities. I just want to highlight how important this project is to achieving not only our countywide priorities from the board of forest health, but also emergency preparedness and wildfire mitigation. This project is really innovative. As Mike said, you know, they're doing it elsewhere. We want to bring it into this region and we want to support it because it does achieve our goals, maybe specifically in Northstar, but we are looking at other facilities, as Mike mentioned, from the county's perspective in our Cabin Creek area. And so I think some of you are familiar with that project. So just want to double down on everything Mike said about the importance of this project. I also want to highlight the partnership that NCSD is for the county and for the region. They are really innovators in so many different areas. They're also our partners. They help us build trails. You know, Mike and his team have been regional partners on so many of those projects with us. So I have full confidence in their ability to deliver this project. And I commend them for taking on the responsibility of the whole of the project, and that includes their desire to be the chief building official on this. So I'm committed. This is their specialty, but I'm committed from the county's perspective to walk alongside them and see this project come to fruition. So just wanted to add that flavor for you. Oh, and I will answer your question about the traffic. So I'll take my CEO hat off and put my traffic engineer hat on. So Northstar Drive does have a plan to be improved to include bike lanes on that road, but with everything kind of East County, additional roadway capacity translates into alternative modes. So we want to support those bike lane initiatives, which Mike talked about. I guess my technical answer to you on the concern over whether the trucks could potentially add congestion or add concerns on that roadway when we have a congested state. It's really less of a capacity issue and more of an operational issue. My thought is that, and I can we have the applicant confirm, is that those trucks would not necessarily be running up and down the road during a peak holiday season where we see a lot of ski traffic. And so we look for opportunities in the operational phase where we can run, different types of vehicles for different purposes off peak. So with that, any questions for me? If not, I'll hand it back to the applicant team.
Questions at this point?
Not yet.
Well, go ahead. You have a question?
No, not yet.
Okay. Yeah, I have a couple questions.
Sure.
Okay. Let me see, there was reference to shipping to Rio Bravo, Rockland.
Yeah, and this
And-
might be an applicant question, not so much
Okay.
for me, but yeah.
Yeah, I might have a question for you too, though.
Okay.
Okay. Previously, it was the understanding with the facility that's been approved at the county site that that would be available only for commercial use and not residential. And this proposal is talking about both commercial and residential use of wood chips. Is that correct?
Maybe, Mike, I don't know if you have any more regional
Maybe these are his
touch point
questions, I
on
don't know.
that. Yeah. Maybe I'll hand it back to you.
Just so I understand it, the commercial and residential use of the wood chips is.
Well, commercial would be like when you're working on your property, and I presume that you have some kind of a chipper that you use?
We just sold it, but yeah. The material, so if I understand what you're saying, the material that we're using, you're going to be utilizing in the facility comes from both commercial and residential sources.
Okay.
Yeah.
So commercial would be like yours or the National Forest where they chip in the forest and ship them to you. But residential would be the stuff that people deliver to the solid waste site.
Well, so the way it works is Eastern Regional Landfill acts as kind of the transfer station or the aggregator for all material in the region. So the material, if it's a green bin that may be placed on a Truckee residential curbside, makes its way to Cabin Creek. Our material, if we're pulling it out of the forest, our contractors will take it to Cabin Creek. So all the material is kind of coming into Cabin Creek. There's different grades of biomass that gets sorted, processed, chipped, and then diverted to the disposal outlets that optimize its value. And so we'd be one of those outlets for the woody material that might otherwise go to Rio Bravo or Honey Lake 100 miles away. Does that answer your question?
Okay, so that's there's no longer a prohibition of separating between the commercial and residential
I mean,
wood waste?
for our project, no, we don't have we're gonna get the material from whatever source it arrived from. It doesn't matter. We won't be taking material, directly to the plant. It would generally be coming from Cabin Creek and the county's contractor there that operates that facility, which is currently Tyler Truckee Sanitation Disposal.
Okay, and you're referencing the cost of shipping stuff down to Rio Bravo or Bravo or some of the other places. So that's the cost that the county's paying or is that your direct cost to ship stuff down there?
So that cost is being paid by the generators of the material. So in the case of our forest activity or our curbside pickup program, the material gets chipped and then brought to Cabin Creek where it's visually inspected for the volume, and then we get charged at the gate. The material that comes from Truckee's green bin programs would be subsidized by the rates that are charged for the residential customers on their tax bill.
Okay, so that shipping is occurring right now then?
Oh, yeah, yeah, so
Okay.
that system's already in place. We're just simply going to divert a portion of it from Rio Bravo or Honey Lake or sometimes landfill in Lockwood, Nevada to our facility.
Okay, maybe one more question. This is just kind of, at least it was my understanding that most of the Northstar area is in TPZ zoning, but apparently this particular site is within forestry zoning. Is that correct?
That's my understanding, yep.
Okay, but most of the site is TPZ when you get up in the mountain, right?
You know, it's more in your guys' court than mine. I really don't know what the zoning is. Jerusha, you might know.
It's a combination of TPZ and forestry and commercial, but yes, there's quite a bit of TPZ.
Okay, so the effect is the same in either, as far as locating a cogen plant, either in TPZ or forestry, is that right?
That's correct for, as spoken to in the presentation. So yeah, cogen plants or recreation and these types of public facilities, public safety facilities are allowed in the forestry zone.
Okay, yeah, you might want to speak in the microphone when you do.
Yeah, could come up here too. I just want to confirm that's correct. So in the forestry zone where this facility is located, cogeneration facilities are an allowed use. And also public safety facilities and recreation facilities. But it is zoned forestry with a combined building site designation.
Okay,
Yes,
thank you.
you're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess, well, I have one more question for the applicant. And this one, we've amended, we've been presented with an amended conditions for 13, 14, and 16. But I'm assuming that you read the whole conditional use report and that you're in agreement so far with what we're talking about as modified?
Yeah, what I'd say, the changes that were added this morning were kind of a late addition and is not frankly ideal for our purposes. We've acted as our own building department on a variety of projects over the course of our existence with the staff that we still have on hand, multi-million-dollar projects, not just little ones. And so we're confident that we can do this. In fact, we generally outsource all of that building department kind of code review and inspection to a third party. And my understanding is we actually use the same consultant that the county has used on a lot of these as well. So we prefer that it weren't in there, but we're acceptable to put it in there if that's what we need to do to keep this project moving forward today, because time is of the essence. If we lose the ability to move forward with the CUP today, then we will essentially lose a year of project implementation because of the long lead times and associated grant funding constraints and whatnot. So it's like I said, and to summarize it, it's not ideal, but we're willing to work with the folks here to potentially still be able to act as our own building authority through the provisions that are set forth with the Board of Supervisors approval process. So.
Okay, and so just for clarification, maybe in my purposes, when you look at the conditional use permit, as far as the approval of the designs, that goes to a third party and potentially would be reviewed by the building department. But what we're talking about here is the actual inspections. Is that correct?
I think we're talking both, yeah. My expert on this is...
Am I interpreting that correctly?
Yeah. Hi, everyone. Andrew Ryan, PR Design and Engineering. I am the project civil engineer, the facility designer, and the land use consultant. So I got a few hats to wear. So yeah, your question on the special districts, in this area, and maybe throughout Placer County, but at least my knowledge of it in this area, have had a level of autonomy for their services. So if it's a water district that's performing a water utility, they've been able to act as their own building official for projects. So I think specifically to your question, that is both the review and issuing of the building permit, and then the inspections as well to comply with the building permit.
Okay, so, but the use permit does require that they go to a third party for the actual...
No, not as written. The use permit, what the use permit's modifying is the original conditions outlaid the district being that authority. And the use permit condition is now saying that the district has an option to go to the Board of Supervisors.
Okay, I guess
Yeah,
I'm still a
so
little bit confused. but-
Both the district and the county at various times use a third-party consultant to do some of that review. But the change in the conditions and the conditions that are being discussed is preliminarily who would do that review. Is that gonna be the district or the county? And it may be that the district would send it out to a third-party review, it may be that the county would. But the conditions and the discussion was about who is charged with that building permit review and ultimate inspection and then approval as well. Does that help?
Mr. Chair,
Okay, I think I'm following.
Mr. Chair, I have a short follow-on question to your line of questioning.
Okay.
And I guess I'll address it to the county council. In the cases that we're discussing here, in the event that they request the authority to be the building official, it's granted, is there any, and I don't, it doesn't matter whether they do it with their own forces or a third party, is there any quality assurance subsequent review of how they perform their function?
Yeah, so in the event that the district did its own building review, inspection, and approval, then there wouldn't be a subsequent county checkup on it.
Okay.
It would be up to the district to perform that review throughout it.
And would liability flow then under those circumstances?
Yeah, so to the extent that, I guess, review was deficient and there was some error and that resulted in liability, then that would fall on the district. It would not fall on the county, correct?
Thank you.
Okay, so then the significant thing here is the requirement that you be going to the Board of Supervisors to get that approval?
Correct.
Okay. Okay, well, thank you.
Yeah, well, and if I may, your question kind of preempted a statement I was going to make, which I would still like to make, if that's okay. Both I and the district are pleased to get to this milestone today with the granting of a conditional use permit. It's making us one step closer to providing these solutions to the impacts of catastrophic wildfire in the area. The wildfire risks affect insurance, property values, and economic activity. And both the district and myself have been working diligently with the staff and have completed the necessary environmental documentation, the project and analysis, and a design for a permittable project of a novel technology in an area that's hard to bring new projects to. We understand the conditional use permit process and the associated conditions of approval. The edits proposed in items 13 and 14 and 16 for us are not ideal for the NCSD to most effectively and efficiently deliver this project because they do remove some of that special autonomy that special districts have enjoyed and is prescribed by legislative code. The district is wanting to move forward today because timeline with respect to grant funding, building seasons, and the rest of the work that has to be done on the project is most critical when viewed through the lens of delivering these solutions in the most expeditious manner to the constituents of Placer County and the NCSD service area. We'd like to make a note on record asking that the county staff, county council, and CEO's office continue to work diligently with the district to help us deliver this project and that they remain active partners in implementing the conditions of approval. Empowering the special district to deliver their services to the public is good for Placer County. It's good for the special districts. They're efficient at what they do, and it's also good for the taxpayers. And with that, I'd like to say thank you, and we're happy to answer any questions.
Any more questions? Okay, well, thank you. Okay, with that, then, what I'll do is, and we'll give the applicant a chance to respond if there's any public comment, too. At this point, I'll open it up to the public. Is there anybody in the audience that wants to speak?
Good afternoon, Chair Johnson and Planning Commissioners. Thanks in advance for thank you for your service as commissioners. My name's Jerusha Hall. I'm the Director of Mountain Planning for Northstar. I just wanted to let you all know that Northstar strongly supports this project. In fact, we love this project, particularly in the cost versus benefit, and then the timeline that we're on. As Mike mentioned, time is of the essence. We think this is an excellent use of the woody materials, and it will really help to accelerate forest health and fuels reduction and will be a benefit to the entire Truckee Tahoe region. We are supportive of keeping woody materials out of the landfill and providing heat to the community. Northstar manages over 8,000 acres of private land. It's a massive lift in terms of managing, and we are constantly struggling with like the cost of getting the work done. We're spending over $10,000 an acre to do this kind of work, and a lot of it is related to, as Mike has mentioned, just the cost of disposing of the material. So we're very supportive of coming up with a new use of this material. We're hoping this is the first of many small projects such as this that can grow in the region and create these hubs and it'll be more of a collective and collaborative solution. We've reviewed the environmental documents, the monitoring plan, the CUP, the changes today, and there's nothing that have concern over. A big thanks to NCSD. They've been amazing with their research on this project, their diligence, their collaboration, their perseverance, and basically at this point, we feel like this is a great project to move forward. And then just taking off the Northstar hat, I did want to say that I'm a board member on the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation, and one of our initiatives is the Forest Futures. And we're constantly sifting through grants and projects, and this project lands way at the top. And we are supporting this project with grants, and we understand, as Mike mentioned, like the timing is important in this moment. So as Mike said, it's time that we take this into our own destiny, and this is a great start. And thank you for listening, and I'm hopeful for a positive outcome today. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Hi, Commissioners. My name is Nicole Miller. I'm following up Jerusha as a representative of the Tahoe Truckee Community Foundation. I'm the Forest Futures Director and also on NITRAC, so you heard our recommendation from NITRAC as well. And I'm also a resident of Tahoe City for the past 15 years. I wanted to speak in support of this project from the Community Foundation. The Forest Futures Initiative is our newest initiative at the Community Foundation that we started a few years ago, recognizing the threat of catastrophic wildfire and the decline in forest health in our region. And so we at the Community Foundation have taken a strong stance in supporting fuel reduction projects in the region, as well as biomass utilization and wood utilization projects in the region as a critical component to reducing wildfire risk. As the applicant spoke to, there's a real need for wood utilization facilities to help with our wildfire resilience efforts in the region. We are seeing projects delayed, fuel reduction projects delayed because there's nowhere to take the wood, or because cost increases and the original budget doesn't work out, and then projects go on hold, or budgets have to be redone, and more funding has to be sought to really keep advancing those fuel reduction projects. As Jerusha mentioned, we have supported funding to the Northstar Fire Department in 2022 to support their fuel reduction projects and their green waste processing efforts. And then most recently this fall, the Community Foundation approved a grant to Northstar Community Services District to support this wood energy facility development. And so this project is just strongly aligned with the Forest Futures Initiative and our goals at the Community Foundation. We feel that increasing wildfire resilience and having an outlet locally for wood utilization is a really critical component to increasing wildfire resilience in the North Tahoe and Truckee region. And so I just strongly urge you to approve this project so that we can continue to really increase the pace and scale of fuel reduction and wildfire resilience for our community and for our community's safety. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else in the audience? Okay, how about online? Okay. Well,
Hi, Stephen, if you could unmute your mic, you'll have 3 minutes to make your comments.
All right, great. Hi, this is Steve Anderson. I own property at Northstar. I've owned that property for 35 years and have seen a lot of changes in a positive way at the community. I'm a chemical engineer licensed in California, and I actually go back to the alternative energy initiatives back in the 70s and 80s. So I'm very familiar with these type of programs. I absolutely applaud the work of Mike Stoudemire and the NCSD team. It's not just the creativity that's so important and critical, but the initiative to drive this forward. I can't add more to what the positive statements have been made by both his staff and the other public comments. But this is a great, unique opportunity to take a waste material and turn it into energy. It has so many positive benefits that I wholly support this as a resident of Northstar. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, thank you. Is there more? Okay. Well, then we'll close the public hearing. And staff, do you have anything more to add?
Nothing to add. Yeah, nothing else.
Okay. I don't know if I heard that, but I think you said you don't, right?
No, we
Okay.
don't have anything else to
Right.
add this time.
Okay, what about the applicant? Anything more to add?
Just thanks for your attention.
Okay, so I'll bring it back to the commission here for further discussion or action if you want to take it.
Yeah, I intend to make a motion, but I want to make a statement first.
Yeah.
I just want you to know I'm the newest member, next to newest member, and I'm the East of the Crest at-large representative. I'm so proud to have heard this presentation today. There are lots of folks living all over Northern California that are affected by the fuel load that's everywhere. And I just moved from one home to another, and I'm finally off the FAIR plan. And when I heard something you mentioned about having hubs of this kind of fuel reduction facility, maybe that could be dovetailed in with the insurance commissioner's FAIR plan, because that one's not really working very well. And I just think that what you've come up with is fantastic, and I hope you're able to replicate that in other areas of North Tahoe and Truckee area. So that's just my comment. So I would like to make a motion to.
Sorry. Well, let's let other people.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm jumping around. Thank you.
I do have a question for the applicant. And I'm channeling Commissioner DiMattei a little bit here. I think this sounds like a question that Commissioner DiMattei might come up with. And I have no doubt there's going to be a very simple answer to this. But I just want to make sure I understand. We already have an existing distribution system that is fired by natural gas that goes to the connected sites that are going to be affected by this proposal. Is that correct?
It is in part. We will need to create a distribution system in that from the facility location to the end user locations, which is the buried insulated pipe that was shown on one of the maps.
Yeah.
But once we arrive at that, those locations, which are boiler rooms in big buildings that house natural gas-fired boilers, we simply tie into the cold water return of those existing building systems with a heat exchanger the size of this podium that boosts the temperature up with our heat such that the boilers don't have to fire as much. So.
Okay, so I guess it sounds like you're answering the question, but I didn't quite get it. So it seems to me that we already have a distribution system that is fired by natural gas that goes to these facilities that heats them. And this proposal calls for a new renewable energy process, which then is also going to be, as part of this project, distributed independently of the natural gas distribution system that currently exists. So it seems. So my question is pretty simple, I guess. I'm sure your answer is going to be pretty complicated.
Sorry.
Why can we not leverage the existing distribution system? I mean, we're going to build 2,500 linear feet of pipeline, right? But that pipeline, I think, already exists as part of the natural gas distribution system. Why can't we leverage the existing natural gas distribution system, which is going to be maintained, the way I understand it, as a backup system? Why can't we just tap into that and not have to disrupt the forest with this additional distribution system that seems to be parallel to the one that already exists?
So the system that we're creating is going, first of all, it's not going to disrupt the forest. It's going to be 90% of it's either going to be in the street right away,
Yeah, no, I understand.
or hung in building mechanical piping, with the exception of that one bridge crossing. So the issue is because natural gas distribution needs to be, that existing system needs to be left in situ. We don't own it. Southwest Gas owns it. It needs to be there as a backup or to augment when we aren't making quite enough heat. And so that system remains intact. Furthermore, it's not designed to carry the heat that we're proposing to use. Our heat is in the form of water, and it needs to be in insulated pipe such that it doesn't lose its thermal capacity as it makes its way to the tie-ins with the boiler system. So,
Okay, I did not understand the existing natural gas process was, distribution process was fundamentally different than what you're proposing. So,
Yeah.
okay, the ownership thing, okay, I get it, but the physical structure is different, so
Yeah,
that's
fine.
what I needed to know. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, any more comments?
You did read a little bit, part of my mind.
Yeah.
Will there be a cost to residents at the Northstar villages to have this implicated?
So we're proposing no costs, out-of-pocket costs for the, what we're calling the connected entities that own and operate the boiler systems that we're planning on connecting to. There might be some minor mechanical elements within those rooms that will be borne by them, but it's de minimis. So we're going to own and maintain all the infrastructure that comes into those facilities. We're trying to beat the cost of natural gas by 5%, at least in what they've experienced, and put that on a relatively moderate trajectory as opposed to what we've seen the global commodity trading world of natural gas, which is all over the map. And so we lend them the ability to get off of fossil fuel, save money while doing so, and have a more predictable and stable energy line item for their heating demands of their facilities.
So it's only going to reduce the cost to, say, a homeowner by 5% to put this in? What is the cost?
It's not going to cost them anything to put it in. It's the cost of the energy going forward where they should.
Are they going to have to pay for the energy that you're providing?
Yes, that's what funds the debt service on the project and the operation of the facility.
So they don't have to, there's not going to be any cost out of their pocket to have this put into their condominium?
Correct.
But you think that they're going to save 5% in fees or cost to use this product over, your product over their product?
That's the proposal. We have one letter of intent that's been signed with the Northstar Property Owners Association that kind of stipulates that, yeah.
Okay. I think that's great. What other questions I have? On days that we have conditions that you can't get trucks in or out of, so that's why you'll keep the gas backed up.
Correct.
Is there enough storage there to maybe run 3 or 4 days without having to get trucks in or out for waste or for in product?
Yeah, so the chip garage, or we call it a chip bunker, has been sized to try to maximize the duration for which we would be able to go without incoming fuel drop-offs in the event that there was road closures and that kind of thing. And that should be the case most of the year. However, if we hit like a super cold snap in February and that happens, it is possible that we could run out of chips, and that's why we want to maintain the existing natural gas infrastructure as a backup supply. And by the way, we're looking at maybe 1 or 2 trucks a day in that peak season. And again, to Commissioner Woodward's question, those would be scheduled off-peak to ski traffic and whatnot for a lot of reasons.
And it mentioned you would generate 240 tons of waste. Was that annually?
So are you talking about the ash?
Yes.
Yeah, I believe that was the figure, yep.
It doesn't seem like a lot, so.
No, and we're also, we mentioned we're looking at taking that up as a soil, or having it introduced as a soil amendment for farming in the Sierra Valley. We're also researching potential utilization of that as an alternative to fly ash and cement production at the
So then would you sell that byproduct, or would you just give it to farmers?
I think we'd give it, but.
Because we have to use about 2 to 1 lime transfer for ash. Just
come on up and.
I do farm a little bit, so.
Bring your pickup truck when you come up, we'll hook you up.
That's a heck of a haul. Okay, thank you, I appreciate it.
You betcha.
One more question for the county. Adding this additional language, does this, given that the county's gonna be the permitting entity here, is it gonna slow down the process to get where these guys were permitting in their own district, slow down the process, or will it continue to be on track where they need to be?
I think, as was mentioned before, I think the intent is to not have a delay and to work collaboratively to a resolution.
Okay.
So there's still some options available to the district on the permitting side of things, and we're going to work with them so that there is not a delay.
Okay, thank you. That's all for me.
Okay, well, yeah, I'd like to mention that I've been involved with forestry for quite a few years, and dealt with a lot of dreams to come up with more cogen in the woods. And so at any rate, I think this is a great project myself, to move forward with, and the potential for what you can do to get rid of the wood waste that is a problem is really high. So, I mean, that's my opinion on this. I know when I worked for the Forest Service, we spent many hours trying to figure out how we could do this economically. And so if you make it work, that would be a good thing. Okay, so with that, if there's any more questions or comments, we could entertain a motion.
I'll have to go through the same. Would the county council help me with this?
Or I can. I will note that on condition 3, when we get to that point, I will reference that it's subject to the revised recommended conditions of approval. Okay, so.
So on that basis, I'd make a motion as per the planning director's reading.
Sure, I'll read in recommendation number 1, which is to consider the initial study mitigated negative declaration and adopt the mitigation monitoring and reporting program prepared by NCSD and adopted by their board of directors on June 21st, 2023 as a CEQA lead agency.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Brontine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, item 2 is consider the supplemental addendum prepared for the project to further address potential impacts to a perennial stream between the southeastern end of the village at Northstar and the NPOA Recreation Center adopted by the NCSD Board of Directors on November 15th, 2023.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Roll call.
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes.
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Brontine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Third item is approve the conditional use permit for the proposed operation of the NCSD Wood Energy Facility Project, subject to the revised recommended conditions of approval and supported by the findings contained in the staff report.
Do you need to add that other language?
I noted the revised
Oh,
recommended
got it.
conditions.
Thank you. Sorry, I missed it. Second.
Okay, motion and a second. Roll call?
I have a first from Commissioner Watts and a second from Commissioner DiMattei. Commissioner Johnson?
Yes?
Commissioner DiMattei?
Yes.
Commissioner Dahlgren?
Yes.
Commissioner Fontaine?
Yes.
Commissioner Watts?
Yes.
Commissioner Woodward?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, well, this project is approved, and I need to mention that it is appealable to the Board of Supervisors. And so anybody that wishes to appeal this project needs to submit their appeal within 10 days to the Planning Department. And so otherwise, you got it. Okay.
Good job, guys.
Okay, and with that, unless we have something else, we're done.